Hey guys, Tarke here, and today I want to do something similar to yesterday's video. I want to talk about my initial concerns of Flamethrower, Lightning Spire, and Seismic Trap. I want to present my ideas quite clearly in a video beforehand, since we will have Bay class coming up with Chris Wilson coming on. I didn't want to spend a whole hour talking about this problem here. We did get some pretty good responses from yesterday's video. Chris did respond a few times. So, it's worth presenting this feedback, and it looks like, in the future, maybe we'll see people like Rykor appearing in rather than random third parties, which is always interesting. So, what is my main issue that I have currently with these new traps? They scale a bit oddly. They have cast speed and duration tags, which I'll talk at the end, but mostly the 8-second cooldown. Adding an 8-second cooldown series of trap skills in the same patch where you remove cooldowns from traps seems a little bit backwards for me. The main reasoning for this is that clearly they're meant to be used as like side utility options or for bossing options, not as a main clear skill, but I think that can be better achieved by just having a limit. Cremation is the perfect example of this. Cremation makes a brilliant side skill, but it can be your main skill, but because it has a limit of cremations, it can't ever super exceed a certain value. And I think that'd be the perfect thing for these traps, either have them a limit of 1 to 3 with no cooldown. And I think a lot of people haven't actually really looked at the potential cooldown you run into. So currently, if you have a 4-second base trap, and also I hope something changes with the trap support gem on that note, with maximum investment, that's Saboteur, Tree, cooldown skill gem, belt, boots, and tinker skin, you go down to a 1.3 second base cooldown. So for these 8-second traps, it'd be a 2.7. Now, this investment is very unrealistic and requires you to be a Saboteur. And another big issue you have now is since your main clear skill traps, the explosive traps, the lightning traps, the fire traps, have no cooldown, you don't really want to be investing heavily into cooldown reduction. So the more realistic value is kind of like you're a Saboteur, you've got maybe cooldown on Tree and a tinker skin, you're looking at a 3.8 base cooldown for these traps. So realistically, they're only going to be seeing use in maybe a breach, maybe before a strongbox, and in bosses. Now, the cooldown could go down with levels. There could be more information we're not yet privy to, but, I want to talk about it here, get the ideas out there, rather than wasting an hour or so on Bay class about this one specific thing. Now, you say, oh, that's fine, Tarke, because, what about cremation? Well, going back to the previous example, you could use a cremation trap instead, and you will have a cooldown of 1.9 seconds. My good friend Tholfos is a big fan, I think I have a window saved earlier here, yep, of the cremation trap, and he regularly dominates the Saboteur hardcore SSF ladder with it. He's currently the rank 1 Saboteur, he was floating, he was rank 2 overall ladder for his first death, and he got a day 2 Shaper hardcore SSF kill. The way he manages to do that, cremation traps is insane. Cremation traps has absolutely bonkers damage, and he has a private profile because he's a little sneaky boy. Cremation trap is going to be better than these new traps. If you want a pure damage bossing trap, you're still going to use cremation trap. Now, cremation trap is a little bit clunky because you need to use stuff like a desecrate or whatever. So there is some opportunity cost there. But my point being, if you want to have this super fancy side thing, it already exists. So what I would think would be much better for the Flamethrower, the Lightning, and the Seismic traps is have a cap on them and then no cooldown. So if you really want to use it as your main clear skill, it'll be a bit clunky, but you can. If you want to use it as supplementary bossing, you can, and you're not having to over-invest into it. So now let's talk about the cast speed and the duration tags more specifically. So Flamethrower and Lightning Spire, the more cast speed you have, the better they feel. So in the case of Flamethrower trap, the more cast speed you have, the faster the flame... bit of a word there. The faster the Flamethrower rotates. The issue with that is trappers generally don't really scale off of cast speed. And they're still keeping trap throwing speed, as you can see from the charge trap support gem giving trap throwing speed. So the way that you throw your traps, that only scales with trap throwing speed, not with cast speed. Now, we could see reworks to movement skills, But Lightning Warp, which would be like the go-to movement skill, which does go off cast speed, scales negatively with increased duration. So you don't want to have any global increased duration, because if you want to use Lightning Warp, it makes your Lightning Warp worse. So them having the duration tag is a bit awkward. Not only that, the way that traps actually work with duration is also very odd. So let's say that you're playing a non-saboteur. If you're a saboteur, the way you get your traps to trigger instantly is through chain reaction. Your nearby traps make other traps trigger. But let's say you wanted to play, I don't know, an Elementalist. I will be planning an Elementalist Trapper for the 3.3 launch. If you want your traps to trigger instantly, you'll use a Sunblast Belt and 2 Hair Trigger Jewels. This will give you 100% reduced trap duration, meaning they instantly explode the second you throw them. However, if you have any global increased duration, that screws this up, and you actually need to stack more Hair Trigger Jewels. The recent build of the week Blink Mirror Arrow build, which was a trapper and took both duration classes, a bit extreme, you'd normally only take 1, but the point still stands, had to use 11 Hair Trigger Jewels to get instantly triggering traps, which is obviously a little bit clunky. Not Hair Trigger, sorry, Cheap Construction. A bit scuffed there, sorry. Cheap Construction. This is the one which gives the reduced trap duration. But yeah, it had to use 11 Cheap Construction traps, which isn't really ideal. Even with only 1 cluster, you're going to have to sacrifice nearly every single jewel slot you have just to get instant triggering traps. And if your traps aren't triggering instantly, it becomes very awkward for the non-trappers, the spell casters who want to use them as utility skills. You're unlikely to have clever construction, meaning your traps can die. They've recently changed it that when you first throw a trap, they are kind of immune, but if there's any poison or damage over time clouds or AoE, they'll die instantly to that. So that's pretty awkward. And you're not going to have any trap throwing speed because a normal spellcaster won't invest into trap throwing speed. And they're not going to have loads of trap trigger AoE. So it's all very, very awkward and all very clunky. So I just personally don't really see where exactly these new traps fit into the new cycle, which is a shame because on paper they are so awesome. They look really cool. The idea of having these spinning wheels of fiery death raining down on bosses or pre-setting up strongboxes is really cool. Same with Lightning Spires, same with Seismic. They all scale differently. It's really cool on paper, but in practice, I just don't see where they're really going to shine. Obviously, stuff could still change, but seeing as Incursion is a month away, I'd much rather people, raise these concerns now, and maybe we see some change or some clarifications, and then, no real concern. But yes, it is still early days. GGG has confirmed they are planning on showing us more skill stuff, so this could all be, actually doesn't matter, Tarke. But again, I didn't want to spend half an hour ranting about this on Baycast. These are my initial thoughts. If you have any other ideas, please let me know. And sorry for spamming the YouTube videos with this sort of stuff. But anyway, I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Incursion looks awesome, by the way. I really like the look of Incursion. It's just some of these skills I'm a bit iffy on. But Incursion, amazing. Best league ever. PogChamp. Bye-bye.